In the video clips and the images that you've just seen, we can see Africans identifying themselves through the African attires, through the bracelets, and through the dances. So, hi, today we are going to talk about self-awareness imperative. So, through cultural interactions, we become more aware about ourselves, we become more aware about our characteristics, about the way we think. We also become aware about our feelings, the way we feel towards people, towards things, and we also learn more about our culture.
So intercultural communication is basically the interaction between people from different backgrounds, and it can be verbally or non-verbally. And as Michelle said, when you're exposed to different cultures, it makes you more vigilant about aspects in your culture, and it makes you dig deeper into your culture. And sometimes what you find out can make you more proud of your culture, and sometimes you might want to change certain things about your culture. And one of the examples that are so close to me is education. So personally, I studied in Kenya, like for my primary school, and I went through the 844 system. And what I realized once I was exposed to people who have studied from different systems of education is that the other systems are more open-minded, and they're actually taught self-expression. So compared to me, who in class, like, we're taught that the teacher knows everything. You can't question the teacher, so the teacher can never be wrong. But then when I went to Strathmore, where people are where people have, like, we're interacting with so many people from different systems of education, and other institutions as well, where there's like people from different backgrounds, you find that they're more willing to question the teacher when something is. We find that they're more open-minded and they're more tolerant to change. And I think that also responds to the how people relate to ambiguity. So we find that people from the Western culture are more responsive to change, and they're more inquisitive, like they're willing to question things. And I think that's why you find the avoidance versus approach, whereby you find people in our culture, they're more willing, they're not as willing and ready to protest as people from other countries. And I think that's something that I'd want to change, like how we need to be more open-minded and more tolerant to change.
Yeah. So now let's have a look at the importance. Why are we studying self-awareness imperative? Number one, it helps us understand our own cultural identity and the culture we identify as. Yeah, we learn more about it. Number two, it helps us break down the cultural barriers that have been brought about by assumptions, that have been brought about by misunderstandings, as we build awareness on our own cultural norms and different cultural norms, be it the negative, be it the positive. Number three, it expresses it exposes the vital role that culture plays in our individual, development. As we learn more about our culture, we tend to appreciate it more, and we tend to integrate different aspects of our culture in our day-to-day life. Yeah. Number four, it helps us gain deeper understanding of other cultures and their way of life. Yeah, as the world grows to be more interconnected, and we see different cultures integrating, we understand that, for example, let's have a look at food. Yeah, we all acknowledge that food, plays a prominent role in the culture and the whole cultural process. And there's different, cuisines, be it from, the Arab cuisine, the Indian cuisine, the Asian cuisine, African cuisine, and these cuisines, across the world help us reveal our traditions and customs. Yeah. So now let me give you an example in relation to tea. So we see students from Kenya, for example, who go to study abroad, so in the first years of study, they go out, they experience the different cuisines, but as time goes and, they come back home and go back for, further studies, be it their third year, fourth year, and masters, we see that they appreciate more. And this is because as they go out to, to different countries, their tea is different from, the African, tea that they're used to, and now they tend to appreciate it more. And we see them carry tea bags from Kenya, not only for their personal use, but for also their, for their friends and their lecturers. And yeah, so we now this now takes us back to our roots and foundations, and we appreciate
So a few years ago, there was a TV show. There was a show on MTV called Exiled, where spoiled American teenagers would be sent to a rural village somewhere halfway across the world. And the whole point of it was that it was meant to act as a sort of shock therapy for them, so that by them being there, living under conditions that were so different from what they were used to, living with the people, experiencing and being exposed to the culture, somehow in all that, they would become more aware of how privileged they were, and it would give them some space for self-reflection. And yeah, the interesting thing is that usually towards the end of the show, they always had that grand moment where they came to the realization that they had been living their life, and they decided to change for the better.
And I think that what I find the most interesting is that culture, like everything else, is much better understood when it's contrasted against something. We often like to ponder on how, presented with a challenge, we would describe light to someone who had lived in darkness their whole life. And in asking that, we come to understand just how much of our understanding depends on contrasting and juxtapositioning different elements of life. Darkness would not make any sense without light to contrast it, and it's very interesting that culture or intercultural learning provides the very necessary contrast we need to be able to understand ourselves and our own cultures better.
We usually find ourselves viewing culture from such a narrow perspective, yet culture is broad and intercultural learning can happen on very many levels. With that said, what has experiencing other cultures taught you about your own?